Are you thinking about moving to Portugal, but wondering whether you can survive here as a vegan or vegetarian? Portugal is a beautiful country and it has some of the most attainable residency visas in the whole of Europe. However, it also has a reputation for not being the best place for vegans or vegetarians. And being honest, that reputation is entirely justified. But in this video, I'm going to show you the top 5 places that you should consider moving to if you're a vegan or vegetarian. Hi, I'm James from Portuguese.com. I'm the author of Moving to Portugal Made Simple and the creator of Portuguese University, which is a free course that'll teach you how you can move to Portugal. I've travelled throughout Portugal. I've travelled throughout all of mainland Portugal, I've been to Madeira, and I've been to all 9 of the islands on the Azores. So it's safe to say I've looked at a lot of menus in Portugal, and I can tell you that vegan and vegetarian options are extremely lacking in Portugal, unfortunately. Now, here's the deal. Vegan and vegetarian options are improving in Portugal. However, they are still far from perfect. And if you're moving from another country, particularly somewhere like the UK or Germany, you are probably going to be surprised at the lack of plant-based options on the menu. In fact, it's such a problem here that even meat and fish eaters complain that they're not getting enough fruit and vegetables when they eat out. The thing is, vegetables here, unlike meat or fish, are often seen as a little bit of an afterthought in restaurants. This isn't because Portugal doesn't have great produce available. It does. Go to the grocery store, go to your local municipal market, and you're going to have some great fruit and veg to choose from. Even if you try to order something like vegetable soup, there's a high chance that chicken stock or some kind of meat stock has been added to it, and the same goes for something like rice. It's not the case everywhere, but you should always ask before you order. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, things are improving. However, some places in Portugal are just a lot better than others. Now, just very briefly, how did I come up with this data? I took a look at Happy Cow, which if you're vegan or vegetarian, you're going to be very familiar with. I looked at locations in Portugal that had at least one vegan or vegetarian restaurant. I'm talking about fully vegan or vegetarian, and combined that with restaurants that had at least 1 or 2 vegan or vegetarian options on the menu. And combining those two things, I was able to create a top 20 list of places that you should consider living in Portugal. Now, it should come as no surprise that the #1 destination on this list was Lisbon. This is Portugal's capital city. It has a population of roughly 500,000 people, and when researching, I was able to find around 61 places here that were fully vegan or fully vegetarian, which honestly is quite an incredible amount. And if you've ever watched a YouTuber, if you've ever watched an Instagrammer going to Portugal and they will rant and rave about how vegan-friendly Portugal is, they've probably been to Lisbon. Now, traditional Portuguese dishes, as I mentioned at the start of this video, are entirely or very, very heavily meat and fish focused. However, in Lisbon, I've been able to eat things like a vegan pastel de nata. This is the Portuguese custard tart, which, as you may know, is made with egg custard and it has dairy in the pastry. And the versions that I've had in Lisbon are pretty much identical to the real thing. I've also eaten vegan alheira, which is a sausage that is typical in Portuguese cookery. I've even eaten things like a vegan take on octopus salad, salada de polvo, which is a popular dish or a popular starter here in Portugal. I've eaten vegan take on choco frito, which is fried cuttlefish. And I've eaten a vegan take on arroz de pato, which is duck rice. As well as all of this, I found the usual vegan options. I found places that were entirely vegan that did things like vegan sushi, vegan pizza, vegan burgers, and vegan Italian food. Now, I want to give you a few caveats, and these don't just apply to Lisbon, they actually apply to all the locations here and the whole of Portugal. Lisbon is a fantastic city for vegans, but that does not mean the entire city is vegan or vegetarian friendly. In fact, far from it. You could have a vegan restaurant that has queues down the street and a traditional restaurant next door that doesn't have a single vegan or vegetarian option on the menu. And so you have this strange sort of paradox in Lisbon where you have these fantastic vegan restaurants, some of the best vegan or vegetarian food you'll ever taste. They're really popular, but the traditional restaurants, traditional Portuguese restaurants, are not necessarily adding vegan or vegetarian options to the menu. And this is despite presumably knowing that there are a large number of people moving to Portugal that have a plant-based diet or at least visiting here, and veganism and vegetarianism becoming more popular within Portuguese culture as well. The other things I would say about Lisbon to consider is Lisbon is an expensive city to live in. It's not expensive compared to, say, New York or London or San Francisco prices, but the prices have really shot up in the past few years, and that's both for rentals and both for buying. Because of this, it tends to attract a younger type of expat or type of international that moves here. A lot of digital nomads, a lot of people working remotely or people working for startups, for example. This isn't like the entire population of expats, I would say, but it is a large proportion of them just because of the cost of living here. Aside from the downsides, particularly the cost of living here, Lisbon truly is a fantastic place to live. Now, number 2 on this list is Porto. Porto is Portugal's second city. Now, it's a little bit smaller than Lisbon. It has a population of around 300,000 versus around 500,000. And this means it doesn't have the same sort of city feel or big city feel, at least, that Lisbon has. Lisbon has that capital energy. Porto always feels a little bit more like a smaller second city. However, in terms of vegan options or vegan and vegetarian options, Porto has around 44 fully vegan or fully vegetarian restaurants here. This is less than Lisbon, but considering the population size of the two places, I think Porto probably has more per population than Lisbon. Now, as well as vegan sushi, vegan pizza, as well as things like vegan arroz de pato, I've eaten a few local Porto dishes here that have been made in a plant-based way. The most famous dish from Porto, at least as of now, is the francesinha, and this is a meat monstrosity, let's say. It is a sandwich with multiple types of meat, traditionally speaking at least. You cover that in cheese, you cover that in a tomato and beer sauce, you serve it with French fries, and you serve it with a beer. And thankfully, there are a number of places around the city that do a vegan or vegetarian version of this. You can also get vegan or vegetarian versions of cachorros, which are hot dogs, and you can get even a vegan version of tripas, which is tripe stew, which is the more traditional Porto dish. Now, let's talk about the reasons to move to Porto. So the number one reason that you might choose this over Lisbon is the cost of living. And this comes down to rental and property purchase prices. It's just that little bit cheaper in Porto compared to Lisbon. It's not as cheap as other parts of Portugal for sure. After all, Porto is a city. However, property rental prices are going to be that little bit lower. It's going to be slightly cheaper to buy property. And this is something that you should consider. I would also consider the fact that it's a little bit less touristy, a little bit less expat-y than Lisbon. It has a different vibe. Now, it depends what you're looking for. You might be looking for that specifically, but if you're looking for something that's slightly more authentic, consider Porto. It isn't going to be as authentic as living in the Portuguese countryside for sure. It still has quite an international feel, and there's still plenty of tourists in summer, but it is that little bit better. Another thing I like about Porto is its proximity to other places. So it's quite close to Braga, which is another smaller city. It's quite close to Guimarães. And most importantly, it's quite close to the Spanish border. So you can get to Spain, to the Spanish border in roughly an hour and 15 minutes. This means that you could live in Porto, you could have your Portuguese life there, but you could easily take weekend trips or perhaps longer trips to explore northern Spain. However, even though Porto is a little bit cheaper than Lisbon, that doesn't mean it's cheap. If you're looking for a very low cost of living, you might have to consider outside of at least the two main cities, if not most of the main cities in Portugal. The other downside that I think you should think about with Porto is the winters. So summers in Porto are good. However, winters are quite grey. People tend to think like, oh, it's Portugal, it's going to be pretty good, it's going to be better than somewhere like the UK, for example, but actually winters are often compared, winters in Porto are often compared to winters in somewhere like the UK or Ireland. Now, number 3 on this list is the city of Braga. Again, this is in the north of Portugal, actually quite close to Porto, so living in Braga or living in Porto, you can actually go from one to the other fairly quickly. It's around 45 minutes to Braga from Porto by bus. You can also get the train in between the two, and it takes a little bit longer, but you have good connectivity between the two. So that is a huge selling point. Another major selling point is that it's quite flat, it's quite walkable, it's quite a laid-back city. It's also close to places like Jerez National Park, so if you're looking for a little bit more greenery in your life, this is a great place to be near, and it's even closer to the Spanish border, so if you want to cross over and see parts of northern Spain, this is also a great place to live. In terms of your nearest airport, Lisbon and Porto have their own airports, both of which are great. In Braga, you'll need to go to Porto or potentially Lisbon to get your next flight. Now, let's talk about the downsides of Braga. So this being close to Porto, it also has the same winters, which are cold, grey and wet. However, People living in Porto or people living in Braga often say that the winters in Braga are actually much worse in Braga than they are even in Porto. So there seems to be a little bit of a microclimate here that makes the weather in winter that little bit worse. As mentioned, it does have plant-based options on restaurant menus. It has some places that are fully vegan and fully vegetarian and has some places with options. However, because we're going down the list, the number of options is getting smaller. So you're going to run through those fairly quickly. Of course, you can go to Porto, as mentioned, fairly easily. So if you're living in Braga and you get through all your restaurants there, you can easily go into the next city and experience more places. Another downside of Braga is it's that little bit further from the coast. So if you're living in Porto, you can get to somewhere like Matosinhos, you can get to other coastal areas nearby. Braga, you're inland a little bit more, so you're not going to be going to the beach as much. However, despite this is a very livable city. I see a lot more expats moving here. I see a lot more people considering it, particularly from places like Brazil and particularly from the US. So if you're on the lookout for a small, walkable, easy to live city, Braga is somewhere that you should definitely consider. Number 4 on this list is Matosinhos. So Matosinhos is located by the beach. It's located close to Porto. Some people see it a little more as a suburb of Porto, but the reality is it's its own city, it's its own destination. You can live here and you have everything that you need. However, you can also get into Porto quite easily. It's about 20 minutes by car or Uber ride. It's roughly around 50 minutes by public transport, which is a little bit too long for some people. However, you can use the Ubers or Bolts, which are quite affordable in Portugal. As mentioned, it's by the beach, so this is a major selling point. You can get up, get out of your apartment and walk down to the beach and sunbathe. This does mean that you do get a lot more tourists there and it can be a little bit windy sometimes, but on the plus side, you do get that sea breeze on the hot days as well. However, there are downsides to living in Matosinhos as well, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons. I would say the first thing is that it can be quite busy during the summer months. So it's a small area, but being by the beach, that means it's going to get a lot of people coming here, particularly from Porto. So cafes, restaurants, bars, places like that, they're all going to be a lot busier. Being by the beach, it means it's more desirable as well. So that means property prices have increased. Now they've increased in Porto, they've increased in Lisbon, they've increased throughout most of Portugal, I would say, but they've really come up here as well because more and more people are starting to realize, hey, this is a great destination, it's by the beach and it's also close to Porto. Another thing that I would say is that the buildings that are around the beach, they're not terrible, but they're not the most beautiful. I've seen worse buildings in other seaside locations in Portugal for sure, but you are going to have a lot more sort of the high-rise apartment blocks, high-rise hotels just behind the beach. They're not terribly ugly, but it would be nice if it was a charming fishing village instead. Another thing to consider is I was looking at the vegan vegetarian restaurants here and yes, it scored highly in terms of the number of places, but I did notice that 2 of them were from the same chain, which is De Terra. This is a fantastic buffet chain that serves plant-based food. However, if you're living somewhere, you obviously don't want 2 of the same restaurant here. You want a bit more variety. So I think once you start getting down to locations like this that just have a few fully vegan or plant-based restaurants, you need to pay a little bit more attention to what's on offer. Now, number 5 on this list is the Algarve city of Portimão. It's a hard one to pronounce, but you'll get there if you decide to live here. Portimão is one of 2 cities on the Algarve, the other one is Faro. They both have a population of around 50,000 people. These are the only 2 cities on the Algarve. They're very small. You're not going to get a city vibe in either of them. Faro is definitely the more beautiful of the 2. It has more historical attractions. It has more cultural attractions. However, Portimão has become more popular in recent years. It's got a few downsides, one of them being that it's not quite on the coast. It's around 2 kilometers inland. However, Faro is closer to the coast, but you need to actually take a ferry to get to the nearest beach. So Portimão is probably that little bit more accessible if you're just trying to get to the beach. You can walk in Portimão, or you can take the local bus, or you can take an Uber or something like that. Like the whole of the Algarve, you'll get 300 days of sunshine here, at least that's what the tourism board says, and you'll have a laid-back lifestyle. It's much more relaxed than somewhere like Lisbon or Porto. One other selling point to Portimão is the public transport. So you can get the bus, you can get the train from here. The train is great for connecting to other locations in the Algarve or other parts of Portugal, and bus connectivity is really good too here as well, at least by Algarve standards. It's also slightly more affordable than other parts of the Algarve. So as mentioned, it isn't right on the coast. It's about 2 kilometers in, and it isn't perhaps the most beautiful city in the Algarve. And this has always meant that it's been a little bit cheaper than other places, although that has changed in recent months. Now, as a bonus, I'm including number 6, which is Lagos. Lagos is one of the most popular places to move to in Portugal right now and to move to in the Algarve. It's particularly popular with surfers and digital nomads and younger people who are moving to Portugal to live and work there, particularly remotely. However, it attracts people of all walks of life, so you will see families, you will see retirees, and you will see younger people as well. Now, why did I include an extra one? I included it just to say that in Algarve region particularly, you don't necessarily stick to one location. So if you decide to live in Portimão, you're not going to spend all your time there just because it's quite small. In fact, Lagos and Portimão are actually quite close to each other. So if you live in one or the other, you can easily visit the other one. I would say when you're looking at the Algarve, you're thinking about moving to that region. So even though the region is quite wide, you will eventually get to visit all the vegan or vegetarian options there, but you'll probably focus on a sort of a sub-region. And generally the Algarve is broken up into Eastern, Central, or Western Algarve, and it's good to sort of pick a place you like there, pick a town or pick a small city that you like, and think about the other towns and cities nearby because you're probably also going to spend time there. Now, other selling points of Lagos is it has good public transport. It has a train line just like Portimão, so you can get from here to Faro, to Portimão, to other parts of the Algarve. And because of the connections, you can also connect and go up to places like Lisbon and Porto. Most people prefer traveling by train rather than by bus. You do have good bus connections as well, so they cover places like Lisbon and Porto, places like Faro, but you also get to the west coast. The west coast is a fantastic, beautiful region of Portugal. It is a destination for surfers, it's a destination for walkers, it's a destination for nature lovers. So a lot of people will base themselves in Lagos, but spend a lot of time there. You can get the bus to these places, to places like Sagres. The connections are kind of okay at best. It's much better to have a car. However, you do have bus connections if you have time and patience to wait on these. Now, another selling point of Lagos is you can walk to the beach. This actually isn't the case in all Algarve towns. I mentioned Faro, you have to get a ferry. I think that's the same in Tavira. In Portimão, the city at least, you're that little bit further inland. But in Lagos, you can walk to several different beaches from the city centre depending on where you are. So that is a major selling point of being here. Now, as mentioned, there are lots of upsides to living in Lagos. It is beautiful, it has the public transport, it has beaches. However, it's also more expensive than a lot of other places on the Algarve. So you should look at property prices here before considering for sure. You may want to consider living in Portimão or somewhere in between just to have like a slightly lower rent or slightly lower property purchase price, and then to be able to take advantage of the things on offer in Lagos. And I would say also, even though it didn't have as many places as Portimão or some of the other places, just because Lagos has a little bit more of a surfer, digital nomad, hippy-dippy sort of feel, I feel like most restaurants are going to be a little bit more amenable to vegans or vegetarians. So hopefully you'll find more vegan and vegetarian options on the menu, or at least if you ask, people will be more positive. Now, another downside I would say to Lagos, and this is kind of unavoidable in the Algarve, is it is a little bit touristy. It's not touristy like Albufeira touristy, and it's not touristy like Praia da Rocha touristy, but yes, it does attract a lot of people there who are primarily coming to surf or to work remotely, something like that. And so while it's a different kind of tourist, it's not quite a party town or anything like that, it is a little bit, it still is touristy and it still is expaty, so you're not going to get that authentic Portuguese feel that you're looking for. Now, being honest, you're probably not going to get that authentic Portuguese feel anywhere on the coast on the Algarve. This is a region that's focused on tourism. If you want that, you're going to have to go further inland, at least in the Algarve, if not into another part of Portugal. Now, another downside to Lagos is it is quite small. So a lot of people end up moving here, particularly digital nomads or younger families, people who are, let's say, in their 20s, 30s or 40s. And Lagos, or the Algarve in general, is very good for a while. It's laid back, it's relaxing, you have better weather, particularly in winter, the cost of living can be lower. However, it can feel a little small after a while, and if you're used to city life, if you want a little bit more buzz and action, you're not necessarily going to find it in Lagos, especially not all year round. And so you need to factor that in. It may not work for you if you're looking for somewhere bigger. Now, of course, you can move here and you can see if it's right for you and then change your mind, but do keep that in mind when considering somewhere like Lagos or Portimão or Faro or anywhere else in this part of Portugal. Now, if you haven't already, I recommend you check out Portuguese University. You can do so by visiting portuguese.com/university. There you will find everything you need to know about moving to Portugal, from where should I live to how do I get a NIF number to eventually moving here, getting your internet connected, and even applying for citizenship. Now, as mentioned, these were the top 5 or 6 places to live in Portugal or vegan or vegetarian, but they're not the only places to live. And the first thing I would say is I wouldn't rule out places that didn't make this list, okay? So there's places in northern Portugal, there's places in the Alentejo. You're mainly going to get meat or fish on the menu. You're probably not going to get a vegan or vegetarian option. If you search around, you'll eventually probably find something in the town, or if you make friends with the restaurant owner, they'll take pity on you. But it's not going to be somewhere that's particularly vegan or vegetarian friendly. However, you need to weigh up what's most important to you. You're going to have a cheaper lifestyle there. You're going to have a more authentic quality of life. You could maybe live off grid or something like that. So you need to decide what's more important to me. Do I want to have 63 vegan and vegetarian restaurants on my doorstep, or do I want to live somewhere more affordable, somewhere more traditionally Portuguese? So I wouldn't rule them out, and then I wouldn't rule out the places that weren't in the top 5 or 6. So there's 20 places or so that I put in my, in my top 20. I would say that there's others on there like Ericeira that I would willingly consider. So Ericeira is a fishing village, or former fishing village. These days it's more surfers and digital nomads, a little bit like Lagos, but it does attract a lot of people who would be interested in a plant-based lifestyle. So even though it didn't make this list, I did notice that a lot of restaurants there had vegan or vegetarian options on the menu. The same goes with the island of Madeira, or Funchal, the capital of Madeira. So this is a place that's always been quite touristy because it's always had the cruise boats stopping there, but in recent years it started attracting a lot more expats, it started attracting a lot more digital nomads, and so the number of vegan and vegetarian options is increasing there. Coimbra is another option. So this is a university city, probably the most famous university city in Portugal, and being a student city, that means it's going to have more people interested in plant-based living. So it is also growing more and more popular with expats, occasionally some digital nomads, not a huge number as far as I know, but you're likely to find a few options there as well. The same goes for Aveiro. So Aveiro is known as the Venice of Portugal. It is a very beautiful, small, compact city. Again, it doesn't have the same number of options as the other places that I mentioned before, but there are a handful, so you could live there and you will have some things to consider. Finally, Vila Nova de Gaia. So this is just across the water from Porto. You could live here the same as you could in Matosinhos, and you could easily enjoy what's available there and come into Porto whenever you want, and come into Matosinhos and go over to Braga. So this whole region, even though they're spread a little bit far apart, you could take advantage of it all. In a future video, probably the next one, I'm going to be talking about surviving in Portugal as a vegan or vegetarian. So when we talk about other parts of Portugal, places that weren't on this list, and even places on this list, including Lisbon and Porto, you're probably wondering what happens when I go to a traditional Portuguese restaurant or cafe. Will I be able to get plant-based milk, for example? Will there be a vegan or vegetarian option on the menu? What should I do? Is there going to be vegan or vegetarian options at the supermarket? That video is for you, so keep an eye out for that. And if you haven't already subscribed, do so, and it'll come up in your feed.